So why do we use cognitive assessments with children and adults with DCD?
It's a really good question, because we don't actually, in some senses, need to
No.
for the diagnosis of DCD. Those assessments don't include an assessment of movement skill.
That's important, isn't it?
And
to
that-
recognise that.
That's absolutely crucial, because to diagnose DCD, that is the focus, that is the core of the disorder, those are the criteria. We do need to establish that a child or an adult's motor skill is consistent with what you would expect for their age and their experience. And in that sense, we can do that through whether a child, for example, is in mainstream school, what the outcome of their teacher assessments are. So we don't need an extensive a period of time spent on a cognitive assessment. When it is useful is when a child or an adult might have other difficulties around their DCD. And we know that difficulties with language, difficulties with memory and so on are quite often seen in people with DCD as co-occurring difficulties. So in that respect, those assessments can then be beneficial.
One of the things that some people ask is, is there a profile, is there a sort of profile when you're looking at the WISC or WACE for children and adults with DCD? Is there a profile? I don't think there is a consistency. We see such variation, isn't there?
That's also a really good question, and there are some areas of work where people have been using profiles for various reasons. And actually, when we look at the evidence, by collecting together information on cognitive profiles from hundreds of people, children and adults with DCD, and look to see if there are profiles where you could say, on this cognitive assessment, strengths here, difficulties there, mean that we can diagnose DCD, even though those aren't motor tasks. There isn't any kind of consistent profile emerging. People are all different, and therefore, at the present time, the evidence shows that there isn't one or more cognitive profiles we could confidently assume or know are consistent with DCD.
This term heterogeneous is often used, isn't it, to talk about variability. And I suppose that's one of the things. DCD is not a homogenous group of people with a very straight profile. It's this variability, which is often a challenge, but it means you need to understand the individual, doesn't it, and their own profile of strengths and challenges.
That's absolutely right. This is not a group of people who perform and look the same. This is a group of people who, like a bigger group of people, all of us, we're very different. And it makes it very difficult then to come up with straightforward ways of categorising people, of diagnosing them in this way. And all sorts of things about people contribute to how they end up when you see them for an assessment. Their language, their family support, their school environment, the activities they do, their resilience, other difficulties they may have around the edges, all of those things contribute to this heterogeneity that we see, the differences between people that make it very hard to have one single profile.